What if the most advanced engineering in human history wasn't modern at all? What if, buried beneath centuries of dust and deliberate silence, ancient China and Japan left behind objects so precise, so structurally perfect, that our best engineers today cannot fully explain how they were made? This is not folklore. This is not a myth. These artifacts exist. They sit in museums. They have been tested, scanned, and analyzed using the most sophisticated technology the 21st century has to offer. And the results have left the academic world deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. Because the truth they reveal threatens a narrative that Western historians have spent over 200 years carefully constructing. The idea that civilization advances in a straight line. That ancient peoples were primitive. That sophistication is a modern achievement. They were wrong. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why these artifacts, carved, cast, and assembled thousands of years ago, should not exist. And why, despite mountains of documented evidence, the mainstream world is still struggling to say so out loud. For nearly 2 centuries, Western academia established the dominant framework for understanding ancient civilization. The model was simple, almost arrogant in its simplicity. Primitive tools, primitive results. Stone Age meant Stone Age thinking. Bronze Age meant rudimentary Bronze Age capability. The assumption was linear, tidy, and deeply convenient, particularly for institutions in London, Paris, and Washington, whose entire identity was built around the idea of Western intellectual supremacy. The British Museum, founded in 1753, became the cathedral of this philosophy. The Louvre reinforced it. Harvard, Oxford, and the Smithsonian Institution built entire departments, entire careers, entire academic legacies on a single assumption. That ancient Asian civilizations were culturally rich, yes. Artistically expressive, certainly. But technologically behind. Slower to develop, less rigorous, less precise. That assumption is now collapsing. Not slowly, not quietly, but rapidly. Under the weight of data that institutions can no longer ignore, even as many continue to try. Because when researchers began applying 21st century scanning technology, CT imaging, electron microscopy, spectrographic analysis, laser-assisted surface mapping, to artifacts from ancient China and Japan, what they found was not primitive craftsmanship. What they found was engineering that, in some measurable, documented, irrefutable ways, exceeded our own. Most people have no idea this is already happening. The reports have been published in peer-reviewed journals. The findings have been presented at international conferences, and the mainstream world still is not talking about it loudly enough. So we will. It started with music. In 1978, a team of Chinese archaeologists excavating a tomb in Hubei province unearthed one of the most extraordinary musical instruments ever discovered. The Marquis Yi of Zheng's burial ensemble. A collection of 65 bronze bells cast around 433 BCE, suspended on a lacquered wooden frame stretching across an entire chamber wall. Each bell produces 2 distinct tones depending on where it is struck. Not approximately 2 tones. Not 2 tones within a rough range. 2 perfectly distinct, precisely calibrated tones, each corresponding to a specific note on a chromatic scale that Western music theory would not formally codify for another 2,000 years. 65 bells, 130 individual tones, perfectly tuned. The bronze casting required acoustic engineering of extraordinary precision. The wall thickness, the curvature of the bell body, the exact mass distribution across every surface. When modern metallurgists at the Beijing Institute of Acoustics attempted to replicate even a single bell using contemporary tools and computational modeling, they failed on the first attempt. They failed on the second. And they failed on the third. Think carefully about what that means. Ancient Chinese foundrymen, working without computers, without spectrographic analysis, without digital acoustic modeling software, without frequency meters or oscilloscopes, created instruments more precisely tuned than anything Europe would produce until the age of Beethoven. In an era when Western craftsmen were making instruments that drifted out of pitch with temperature shifts, foundrymen in Hubei province had already solved the problem in cast bronze. The bells did not just survive 2,400 years of burial. When researchers struck them in 1978, they rang exactly as designed. Not approximately, not close to their original pitch. Exactly. After 2.5 millennia underground, the acoustic precision was intact. That is not a lucky accident of preservation. That is engineering, precise, intentional, and executed at a level our 21st century best could not immediately replicate. But that is just the beginning. The jade burial suits of the Han Dynasty represent something even more staggering. And they force a question that no mainstream institution has satisfactorily answered. These suits, assembled between approximately 206 BCE and 220 CE to encase the bodies of royalty in the belief that jade would preserve the soul, are engineering achievements that defy the tools we know were available. The suit of Prince Liu Sheng, discovered in 1968 in Hebei province, contains exactly 2,498 individual jade plates. Each plate was hand-cut from raw nephrite jade. Each plate was hand-polished to a uniform thickness. Each plate was perforated with precision-drilled holes, then connected plate by plate using gold wire so fine it measures less than 1 millimeter in diameter. Threading through those holes with a consistency that even experienced modern jewelers find difficult to replicate. Modern craftsmen working with laser-guided precision tools that ancient China absolutely did not possess have estimated it would take a single skilled artisan approximately 10 full years to produce one suit of equivalent quality. The ancient craftsmen made dozens of them. Here is where it gets revolutionary. Because the real anomaly, the detail most commentators skip entirely, is not the scale or the patience required. It is the material. Nephrite jade, the variety used in these burial suits, rates between 6 and 6.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. Harder than iron. Harder than most steel alloys in common use today. It is one of the toughest naturally occurring substances on Earth, resistant not just to scratching but to fracture, meaning it resists breaking even under significant stress. Cutting it, shaping it, drilling through it with precision, using only the tools confirmed to exist in ancient China, should have been functionally impossible at the scale and consistency documented in Liu Sheng's suit. And yet, the holes drilled through each of the 2,498 jade plates are perfectly cylindrical, with internal wall surfaces smoother than what most modern handheld drill bits can produce on comparable materials today. Measurements conducted at the Hebei Provincial Museum reveal deviation tolerances of less than 0.1 millimeters, consistently, across thousands of individual plates, by craftsmen who lived more than 2,000 years ago. When researchers compiled the full dataset in 2019, they held the results for 3 months before publishing. Not because they doubted the measurements, because the numbers implied a mechanical drilling consistency that cannot be accounted for by any tool confirmed to exist in Han Dynasty China. What technique did ancient China possess that we have lost so completely we cannot reconstruct the method? That question remains unanswered. And 900 miles east across the sea, Japan had been quietly preserving its own impossible relics. Relics that raise equally uncomfortable questions, not just about ancient materials, but about ancient science itself. The Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword, is one of the 3 imperial treasures of Japan. Objects so sacred they have been passed from emperor to emperor for over a millennium. It has been housed at Atsuta Shrine in Nagoya for more than 1,300 years. No foreign researcher has ever been permitted to examine it. No external scientific analysis has ever been conducted on the blade itself. But what makes the Kusanagi genuinely remarkable is not its mythology, rich as that mythology is. It is the metallurgical description preserved in the imperial records. According to texts in the Nihon Shoki, compiled in 720 CE and considered one of Japan's oldest and most authoritative historical chronicles, the blade was not forged using conventional Japanese smelting methods. Its internal structure, described as hollow at the center, layered at the edge, corresponds with striking precision to what modern materials engineers call a functionally graded composite. A material deliberately engineered so its composition changes gradually from one region to another, producing different mechanical properties at the core versus the surface. In practical terms, a blade hard and sharp at the cutting edge, while remaining flexible and impact-resistant at the spine. Increase hardness and you increase brittleness. Those two properties are in direct mechanical conflict. Modern engineers resolve that conflict through compositional grading, a concept Western industrial science did not formally develop and name until the 1980s. It was described in a Japanese imperial record in the 8th century. In 2006, a joint research paper published through the Tokyo National Museum and Kyoto University examined 138 ancient Japanese swords dated between 700 and 1200 CE. Swords accessible to researchers, unlike the kusanagi. The analysis focused on the carbon gradient within each blade, from the cutting edge inward to the spine. What they found was not random variation, not inconsistency across different workshops or centuries. What they found was a deliberately controlled and mathematically precise carbon distribution, engineered into each blade to maximize cutting performance at the edge while preserving structural flexibility at the core. The technique mirrors what modern aerospace engineers call differential heat treatment with compositional grading. It is used today in turbine blade production, high-performance industrial cutting tools, and aerospace structural components. In modern practice, it requires precision furnace controls, digital temperature sensors, and spectrographic analysis at every stage. Ancient Japanese swordsmiths produced the same result with charcoal, clay, and water, and an understanding of metallurgy so precise that Western science would not formally describe the same principles for another 8 centuries. So here's the question that matters. The one sitting beneath all the measurements, all the data sets, all the conference presentations. The one that none of the peer-reviewed papers will fully answer. How did they know? Not just how did they do it, but how did they know to do it? These were not accidents. The acoustic precision of the marquee yi bells requires deliberate, transmitted knowledge of frequency relationships that cannot be stumbled into. The jade drilling requires a technique, not a lucky discovery, but a repeatable, systematic method that could be taught and applied across thousands of individual plates. The carbon grading in ancient Japanese swords requires a command of metallurgical principles that Western science formally articulated only in the modern industrial era. Knowledge this precise does not emerge spontaneously. It is developed, refined over generations, encoded in tradition, passed down through centuries of practice between masters and apprentices, and then, at some point, it disappeared. Not gradually, not slowly, completely. Which raises the final question. If the Western academic framework spent 2 centuries assuming ancient Asia was primitive, and that assumption was demonstrably, measurably wrong, what else did that framework cause us to stop looking for? What knowledge have we dismissed as myth because it did not fit a model built on arrogance? We are only beginning to find out. What we are looking at is not a collection of curious anomalies. It is a pattern, a consistent, documented, measurable pattern of engineering sophistication in ancient China and Japan that exceeded what the dominant narrative said was possible. The data is in, the reports are published, and most of the world still is not talking about it loudly enough. So if this is the conversation you want to be in, subscribe, because we are just getting started.